Hi everyone, it's Richie from hitstartnow.com with another quick hit video. So this week I've decided to talk a bit about why I became, I suppose you could say, influenced to start doing the podcast and the entire site really. But I'm going to talk a bit about the podcast today in particular. Again, we've been doing the podcast now for, it's coming up on like well over a year at this stage. It's been such crack since we started, myself and Spud. We've had immense fun getting it set up, getting it off the ground. From something that we were kind of talking about in the pub one night, almost half messing about it, saying like, "Oh, hey, would you be interested in doing a podcast?" And we're kind of like tentatively, we're like, "Yeah, would you?" I was like, "Yeah, I'd fucking love to do one." And I think we both kind of thought we'd hear nothing more of it, and it's like, yeah, one of these flash in the pan ideas. But little did we know, a couple of months later we'd be recording our first episode, and here we are 20 odd episodes on, and we've had such a ball with it, and running the entire site in general has been so much fun, and it's something every day I think we appreciate we've a chance to do. So this week I thought I'd give all you listeners and watchers at home a bit of an insight into the kind of podcasts I listen to, and what again gave me the inspiration to move on and do this podcast in general. So I've been a big gamer my whole life. Everybody knows that at this stage, but it hasn't been until about the last 3 to 4 years, coming on 3 years I'd say, that I really got into podcasts in general. And really what I started with was gaming podcasts. I never really listened to anything else before that. Again, I used to listen to talk radio and the likes of, over here in Ireland we've News Talk. That's an all chat radio station. I know in America and further afield, Europe and places, there's a lot more talk radio than we'd have in this country. But News Talk would be the big one here, and I'd always listen to that. I just couldn't really stand listening to regular radio and all the shite music and stuff. I like to kind of learn something as I was going along. I know a lot of people probably think that'd be incredibly boring. But to me, I used to listen to a lot of music on my headphones and my iPod when I was out. But over the last, let's say, few years, it's been mostly podcasts I've been listening to. And especially since I used to do a night shift in my old job, and I used to get my iPod dock, throw that in behind the counter, throw my podcasts on, listen away all night. Great crack. But anyway, the first podcast I started listening to would have been the Citizen Game podcast. A lot of people probably know Danny O'Dwyer at this stage. He works for GameSpot, doing great work. But I knew back when he started off on his first site, he's done many sites, but his podcast in general, that was the first gaming one I used to get into. Great fun, and that was what initially inspired me to say, hey, look, these guys they got this off the ground, they're running with it, they're doing it in their bedroom or whatever, they're having to crack. It's like, why can't we do that, So again, that was the first one that really got me into the whole podcast scene. And from that then I started branching out into a lot of other ones, such as, it'll be this stage, it's the Giant Bombcast they call it, Giant Bomb, that gaming site. That'd be the podcast I'd really listen to mostly. But that's, again, the guys over there do a hell of a lot of work, but their podcast is weekly and it's well over 3 hours most of the time. So literally listening to it in my spare time all week, I have just about time to get through it on a weekly basis. I might listen to it in and out of work every day, maybe half an hour a day. So again, that really gets me through the week. But again, it's an incredibly technically kind of related podcast. Like I said, the lads know their stuff and they go into great detail about things and all. But great personalities, the fun side of it really comes out. But at the same time, it can get a bit long-winded sometimes, and it's like, I want something a bit more laid back, a bit more kind of easygoing, which it does happen in moderation on that show. Well, not in moderation, an awful lot. The guys, they have great personalities, they bounce off each other. But I do find from an Irish, maybe non-industry kind of person, it does get very name-droppy, and it's very, very American orientated, you know what I mean? Like they're always talking about, down on 54th and 3rd Street here in San Francisco, you got that shop. Oh, I know that shop. That's Tim owns that shop. Oh, Tim, yeah, he's friends with John from that studio. And, John lives over in Fairbank. Yeah, it's like, again, in all fairness, just the lads having a chat. That's what they do. But sometimes you do feel like, I don't know what the fuck these guys are talking about, because I'm not in the industry and I'm just here as a fan. And now I feel bad because I don't know who they're talking about. And, you get wrapped up in that kind of thing. But again, I think because the guys on it do know so much and they've such fun personalities, it really does lighten up the week, you know. So the Bombcast, that's well recommended in my opinion. Another one I was listening to is Sarcastic Gamer. I think they're actually gone now. I'm not too sure. It's been a long time since I listened to their stuff, about 2 years I'd say. They were good fun, American based as well. There's One Life Left is an English podcast. I think it's like an alternative radio station in London. I can't remember the name of it, but this goes out on radio, but then they throw up the podcast as well each week. That is good fun, you know, and it's got a female presenter as well, which you won't really get a lot of gaming podcasts with that. There's a few going, but it adds a nice bit of touch. Good production values to it as well, I have to say. But again, that's one I haven't really listened to in a long time. I know it's still going. There a few months ago I jumped in and got the latest episode and had to listen to that. Again, it's fun, but it gets a little bit dry sometimes. But again, each to their own. Just try them out and see what you think. Then the other big podcasts, my favourites, I'd say, will be it used to be Games Radar, Talk Radar UK. There's an American one as well. I used to listen to the English one, and this was the bread and butter of my gaming podcast for a long time, because they used to be weekly. They're about an hour and a half each week, so just about the right time. Then it went to fortnightly, and then they took a load of breaks in and out and stuff, you know. But when it was a straight run of those podcasts, they were immense fun. Games Radar UK, and it was Talk Radar UK. They changed the name there a few months before it ended. Again, that's finished now, but the two of the guys that were on that podcast have gone off and done another one. They've been running their own site now, dlcentral.com, and it's called the Amazitron podcast. And two of the guys doing that now they're definitely my favourite, you know what I mean? It's like Matt Cundy is his name, and Nathan Irvine, two of the lads that went from Games Radar, set up this dlcentral.com website, and they're putting out a podcast now each week. And the thing I like about their podcast, it's not incredibly professionally done from a technical point of view. I think they've actually recorded on their iPad sitting in their bedroom, you know. These are grown men, like, you know, they've been working in the industry for a long time, and it's just the two of them as well. So it reminds me and Spud's kind of set up here, you know. I'd say, even dare say, the recording quality in our podcasts are actually better than the Amazitron ones. But the two guys have such good chemistry on that. They're always my favorite. Back when they're on Talk Radar UK, there was like 4 or 5 of the regular guys used to do the podcast each week. But the two that went off and they're doing this Amazitron one now, they're definitely my favorite guys. Like, you know, they've such fun. They have a real laid back kind of attitude to it, and they have such a good sense of humor. They're always bouncing off each other, and again, they know their stuff, but they have it on. It's when you listen to those podcasts, it's like you feel you could be hanging around the pub with these lads on a Friday night, just talking shit about games and whatever. You know what I mean? It's not really a snobby kind of, you know, I know everything about games and you don't know anything, and if you don't know this, or if you don't like this game, you're a loser. Well, why don't you play that? Everybody loves that game. It's a real non-condescending, just fun podcast to listen to. So that's gotten me through. I mean, podcasts are great because you have such a wealth of them, especially if you get into a show that's been on a long time. You literally, you could have up to like hundreds of episodes to just jump into. Great to pass the time. Great if you're just even playing around on a game. You can throw on your headphones, have a listen. If you're walking around town, if you're working, even if you can wear headphones, I just think it's a fantastic way to go. Like, you know, they've got me through years, you know, just going through back episodes, jumping in and out of different podcasts, seeing what you like, seeing what you don't like. And that's really is what inspired myself anyway to get going on these podcasts. Because I remember saying to Spud one of the first nights, I was like, oh, you should listen to these Games Radar UK guys. Their podcast is hilarious, you know. It's just 4 or 5 lads hanging around shooting the crap as if they're in a pub, you know. Great fun all together, you know. And then it's good to have different personalities, and you find some podcasts, again, they're incredibly informative, but they can be very dry and they can be a bit boring, you know. So going forward, myself and Spud always said we need that bit of humour there, you know, just to inject it in, have a bit of crack, lighten the mood a bit. And then it's like you're engaging with your listeners a bit more, because you're almost like, these guys are cool, you know, I feel like I could talk to them myself. You know, that's what we want. We don't act like we know everything. We just have a nice, fun, informative podcast. We always surprise each other the whole time. Like Spud, he's majorly into stuff that I'm not into. I'm into stuff he's not into. And that's what makes it work, you know. And the same with other podcasts I've listened to. When you get the kind of, not clashing personalities, but difference of opinion, it's what makes it fun, because I've listened to podcasts where everybody agrees on the same subject, and it's like, oh, lads, this isn't really, there's no crack here, there's no debate going, you want to shake things up a bit. So anyway, that's a little insight into the kind of podcast I listen to. Again, I could just sit here for 10 minutes and just literally list out podcasts, gaming ones in particular. There are so many. I think what you really have to do if you want to get into it is jump in, have a listen around, but just make sure you come back and listen to our podcast, so you don't want any trouble now. But anyway, check it out. I'll put some links up below to the ones I've mentioned, and I hope you enjoy, and we'll check you out sooner on hitstartnow.com.